Hi, my name is Jim Chu, the data center manager for Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. My team and I directly manages about 15 data centers, there's around 700 racks. And our primary goal right now is to consolidate more of that down. And also this is started using Inlight to manage all our IDCs as well. Yeah, because for JPLs, we started off without having the DCIM software in the beginning. So we started looking about 4 or 5 years ago for DCIM solutions, is actually managing a lot of different projects. What it comes down to is when you started using the DCIM software, it's just a lot of capabilities, and at one time you're trying to get your hands around it. But the best advice I could give everybody is just start with one rack at a time. So work on there and get everything that you need in that one rack and then move on to the next. And then you'll realize this is much more simpler than what it started off with. For JPL, what happens is a lot of times we're actually a little bit more different than the standard industries. We're more of I'm running more of a co-location on our self-center because all the different projects and different flight projects will actually bring their own equipment coming in. So JPL has a whole asset database of every piece of equipment that's actually purchased in the government. So unfortunately, to get the understanding of what's in that room or what's in the certain locations, you're getting a lot of garbage in that data. So that's why we're actually started looking at saying, so we need to get it in light to actually just understand what's actually the equipment and stuff that's in the room that's associated with different projects. So that way we understand this equipment belongs to this project and that equipment belongs to who, and who are the support peoples that's responsible to support these, and who's the managing project managers and who's also managing these equipments. So that's why we're actually, JPL is looking at using the DCIM when we first started off, and understanding because now we're becoming more co-location for all our different projects, internal customers, and not understanding exactly what is the customers bring in, not until it's actually showing up on the dock. So the DCIM allows us to actually put everything together and to actually present it easier and understanding, so given also chart, kind of looking back and says, okay, this is how much floor space you're using, this is the power you're using for the different projects. For JPLs, a lot of this is when we started using the DCIM, different projects actually has a requirement to maintain documentation of all the interconnects, cables, and power requirement for the. As we're putting this stuff into the DCIM, they realize that now their documentation is actually outdated, because now this is within the DCIM software, this is actually real-time documentation rather than point-in-time documentation. So now this is a lot of different organizations at JPL is actually looking at using DCIM to just point back the reference back to the DCIM software for their documentation requirements. Actually, for us, this is actually getting more integration with different monitoring tools around the other areas. So that gives us the single pane of glass to actually look at the equipments inside, such as the OS monitoring.
Is that for issue resolution, or I mean, what are you really trying to get to?
To get to the point where we actually could understand all the applications, because right now we have a lot of equipment that may or may not be used in 100% efficiency. So the different projects has a different requirements for their monitoring capabilities and what they do provide. So we're actually looking at to integrate our EM7 into it to give us a better understanding of what's the hardware and software-wise what is being used on every piece of equipment. The aha moment for us is actually looking at the software and the system. When we're getting so many different projects moving their equipment into our data center, and we're sitting there looking at it and says, okay, how are we going to get our hands around all this? How difficult it is, and looking at it with our old tools and whatnot, is to actually understand it. So as we started implementing the DCIMs, we're looking at this as actually now thinking back, is like, why do we ever use the previous tool beforehand? This DCIMs is to give us everything that we're actually looking for and to be able to actually give us more capability than what we initially conceived. So the understanding is that you may not understand what you have right now, or you may not understand what you may need, but as soon as you're using it, then you realize there's a lot more capability that expands out, and you go, now I could do this with this data, and now I could actually present a different way to different managements and looking at a certain point of view.
Okay, Jake?
Yeah, so to answer the question was how does it keep track of that? So as you bring equipment in, then you can actually start working on it. Then you actually generate work orders for the process that's in there. So you could do this as a move. So you could do decommission, and that will keep track inside the inline software that actually will be able to track it all the way back and forth to see when is that equipment. So you can actually have the equipment that's on the recycle capabilities so that it can be reused by other divisions as well. And that brings back that equipment back into the system. Or as in our case, when we decommission, then that gets pulled out and then sent out to be accessed out in the public sector.
Okay. The
Yeah,
general
I
maintenance?
think finally understand the questions is on that side. Actually, the maintenance of the software itself is actually doesn't really, it's actually very self-maintenance in that sense. But what it does is to run the application to make sure everything's up to date and running that, it takes about 1 FTE for us to actually run the application.